You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen. Today, as I always do, I am going to tell you about what I'm going to tell you about. So, today's subject is the new nutrition label. Now, you probably have kind of missed it because they've been rolling it out for a while. It was actually supposed to be mandated, I think it was sometime last year, when it might even been earlier, but it was supposed to have been started in mid-2018. So it's actually a year and a half ago. And then they got delayed because of food manufacturers who were requesting and who lobbied the current administration to give them a little bit more time. So they gave them a little bit more time, and now it is supposed to be in place. And as usual, they also gave them a little bit of extra time, a few more months. So if you don't see it, there are probably a couple of companies that won't have it yet, but I'm guessing that most of them have already made the change. Again, I think you probably have already seen it and not realized that there was this new label coming in. I know that's how I reacted. I had no idea that there was actually a new whole label because I was already reading it on the things that I buy that have nutrition labels on them. And that's probably because most of the things I buy are more organic and healthy, and those companies are more interested in using this new label because it gives a lot more information and breaks things down a lot better, and again is going to make their product look better than the competition. Okay, so let's talk about the new label and some of the things that are new and that are also very helpful. One of the additions to it, which is really a very important one, and that is that under the sugars, there is now a second line that says includes, and then there's a number, say 10 grams, for instance, added sugars. So that means that what they're doing is they're breaking down the total number of sugars. For instance, if you got, let's say, applesauce, okay? Well, the apples themselves have sugar in them. But there are a lot of companies in their particular products who add more sugar. It could be from honey. It could be from maple syrup. There's a lot of different things, but it's added sugar. It's not part of the fruit itself. Okay. So that's number one that's being called out now, which is extremely, extremely helpful. They still have all the total fat and the saturated fat and the trans fat called out, which the old label did as well. It's got cholesterol and sodium, okay, and then the total carbohydrate, which is where you find the dietary fiber, total sugars, and now includes how many added sugars, which is really good. And then it's got protein. And then below that, it also has the some vitamins and minerals, which the old one also had, but they changed them up a little bit. The old list was vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron. Now there's vitamin D, as in dog, calcium, iron, and potassium. And that calls out the importance of the potassium in particular, and the vitamin D, because the vitamin D is good for your bones, and the potassium is good for let's see, I can never remember that. Oh, that's right. Yeah, how can I forget that? It is good to help lower blood pressure, and these days blood pressure is something that many people are dealing with. And a lot of that is related to salt and how much salt people are eating, particularly when it's the iodized salt, because that stuff doesn't really have much value of any kind. If you like salt, eat sea salt. I mean, you should still limit it, but eat sea salt, because at least it still has all of the minerals and other natural things that has not been put through a manufacturing process. It still has the iodine in it. It's much better for you than the iodized salt that we were all raised on. The other thing that they've changed is that they've changed up the way that the lettering is on the top. So nutrition facts is still the bold, same size. Right below that, it says how many servings per container. Below that tells you what the serving size is for those 8 servings. And it gives you that as a cup, for instance, like 2/3 of a cup, as well as in grams. So 2/3 of a cup would also be 55 grams. Below that then is the same thing, that amount per serving and the number of calories. And that calories and the number of calories, say 200, is much bigger and bold black lettering. The percent daily value now is based on someone who has 2,000 calories per day. The old one used to have this thing down at the bottom that gave you what would be for 2,000 and what would be for 2,500. This new one just does 2,000. And then if you are going to eat more, or if you usually eat more than that, then you need to go and do the calculations pretty much yourself, which is not that big of a deal. But the percent daily value that it gives you is all based on 2,000 calories a day. So for instance, it says total on this sample one, it says total fat 8 grams, and then 10% is the percent of the daily value. So it's saying that it provides 10% of the total fat that you should be having in a 2,000 calorie per day diet. Okay? So that's the major, those are the major changes. It does look a little different. And I like those changes that they made. I like them calling out the calories. The serving size is much larger as well in print. And I have been seeing the thing with the added sugar, and Brian and I always look at that. So very important pieces of information that they're calling out and that they have added. The other things, let's see, any other things that they are added. Again, the A and the C they dropped probably because most people didn't know. They figured C most people are getting anyways, and A most people didn't know what A was in either, or I should say also. The vitamin D is important. The potassium definitely. The sodium, I think it all depends on how it's getting added or where you're getting it from. And the fiber is obviously something that's very important, which is still in there. The dietary fiber is still in there. Okay, so one of the things, though, don't forget that these labels are not on the healthiest things that you can eat, which are fruits and vegetables, because those are fresh. They don't have added sugar. They don't have added sodium. They have lots of good vitamins. Some of them have some minerals, but most of them, it's the vitamins and the fiber, which is very good for you. A little bit of sugar, but that's going to be natural sugar. It's not going to be added, as I just said. It also isn't going to have any trans fats in it. It may or may not have saturated fat, but it is so important to get most of your diet from real food and not processed food. And most of these nutrition facts are going to be on things like baked goods and other processed things that have been changed. Processed means that they're no longer what they were. So it is something that has been changed, and just shouldn't be the major part of your diet. We all know things like bread and that sort of thing. And if you can get some with some higher fiber, that's fine. But again, that shouldn't be the mainstay and the biggest part of your diet and of your calories. And right now, there's a lot of people in this world, and particularly in this country, who are eating a lot more processed food because they think it's a lot less expensive, whereas the fresh vegetables and the fresh fruits actually are not that expensive, and they will help you to feel full for longer and help you have more energy and feel better than a lot of the processed breads and chips and all of those crackers, all of those kinds of things. Okay, I think that's about it for this. I don't think there was much else that they changed. Again, I think it's fairly obvious that the companies with the products where people aren't necessarily going to like what they see on there are the ones that have been pushing back on this and dragging their heels. So I think you'll probably start seeing those coming out on the products in the markets over the next couple of months. I believe they have 6 months in 2020 to keep dodging having to put those labels on, but that's going to go into effect. And I think and hope that it helps a lot more people to eat a healthier diet. I'm sure all of you listening to me already eat healthier diets and already know those things that you should or shouldn't eat. So I understand that I am preaching to the choir here, but it never hurts to get a reminder. that's it for today. There is one more thing that I saw that I thought looked really kind of interesting. Oh, yeah. I was reading that cigarette smoking has reached an all-time low in the United States. And this came out from researchers at the CDC, the FDA, and the National Cancer Institute. And they looked at the 2018 data from what's called a quote-unquote nationally representative annual survey of U.S. households. I'm not exactly sure what that is. But that came back reporting that under 14% of adults reported smoking in 2018. And that is the lowest that they have ever found in that survey's 60-plus years history. And it actually, if you want to compare it, it is actually a 2/3 drop from the levels in the 1960s, which is when everyone was smoking, or a lot of people were smoking, and most people didn't realize the dangers of it. So this is really great news. It means it's been going down. And e-cigarettes, unfortunately, though, have been going up. They went up between 2017 and 2018. They went from 2.8% to 3.2%. And that was overall, adults overall. But if you just looked at young adults, it was twice that. So I don't know. I guess we're going to end up with a whole nother generation that's going to be having to deal with lung cancer and various other cancers having to do with smoking. I don't understand why they don't seem to see that it's no different than a cigarette. It really isn't. Especially the ones with the nicotine in them. And the flavored ones, oh my God, those are so bad for you. Okay. I am going to wrap it up here, I think. And I will tell you that I hope you're enjoying some of the interviews that I am doing. I will have another interview next week with a friend of mine. And we spend a lot of the time talking about meditation and how important meditation and quieting your mind is for your health, which I know that there are probably a good number of you who already know that and do that. But again, like the nutrition labels, it never hurts to be reminded of those kinds of things. Okay, let me say again that I am not a doctor. This should not be construed as medical advice. And if you are having a medical issue or emergency, please go and get help from either a local hospital or ER or from your personal physician. I am just bringing you interesting information about what's going on in the world in the area of health, wellness, and food, which is a part of wellness. So if you have something serious that you need help with, then please go and get your help from a licensed professional. Oh, that's it. I will be talking at you next week.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.